Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It's Not Just You, where we answer burning questions from women in male-dominated industries. Today, we're going to answer two. I get the sense that if I don't play small, I'll be fired. What should I do? I have a lot of opinions on this one, but also some helpful tips. And I'm expected to drive huge results and then told to stay in my lane. How do I even do this? So those are the two that we're going to get into today. But first, a little bit about why we're here, right? I think it's so important for us to understand why we do the things that we do. I've spoken to almost 2,000 women over the past year and a half, and the same set of areas come up. Our perfectionism that's leading to burnout, maintaining boundaries and holding people accountable, speaking up and not letting self-doubt keep you quiet and small, and then how to actually get everything done and still have a life without burning out. Like, these are the questions that come up the most often. And so the goal of these is to get really candid answers from someone who's been doing this for a long time. And I'm not beholden to anyone. I can say whatever I want because I work for me. So I can give you really candid, honest answers. And so that you'll know it's not just you. Like, since I've become a coach, I hear the same things over and over and over again. And everyone thinks, and certainly what I thought when I was really going through it, is it's just them and that everyone else is like, got it all together and we are uniquely broken. And I want everyone to understand that we all feel like this inside. And so the secondary part of this is at 1:30 right now, we're going to take the awesome women here, get together and do some structured networking. So if you're watching on the live stream and you want to come do the fun stuff, the link is somewhere. I never know which side, but come and join us. We'll do that at 1:30. Anyone who wants to stick around, we'll do some structured networking. So a little bit about me, Gretchen, founder of Unbound and Unbothered, which is leadership coaching for people who feel stuck, stifled, or at a crossroads, who are looking to move forward. I spent about 20 years in tech, mostly at early stage startups where all the bananas stuff happens. And in 2017, I burned out at the height of my career. I walked away from a job I was really, really good at, that I'd worked very, very hard to achieve. And I started running an organization for women in tech. And I did that for a couple of years, and it really fed my soul. It gave me time to get my mental health and physical health back in order. And then COVID hit, and I had this great idea that I would go get a real job. And that was a disaster. I went back into an early stage startup. None of my tools were working. I couldn't read enough self-help books, do enough meditation. I mean, I was certified to teach yoga, and I still couldn't get any amount of Zen. And so I finally hired this coach that I'd been following for years. And the change that I saw within myself was so profound, not with just how I could deal with work and the stress at work, but also my relationship with myself, and then by proxy, the relationship with the people around me. And so that's why I do this, because 56% of women leave tech by mid-career, and that's unacceptable number to me. And so there's so much of this that is within our control, and we can get that time and energy back. And then if we want, we can go back in and fight to change the things that are forcing people out. So that is why we are here today, or at least that is why I'm here today. A couple quick housekeeping things. We've got a masterclass coming up next Friday, the Overcoming Burnout and Reignite Your Fire. So if that's of interest, Amy will drop the link here on the Zoom. If you're on the live stream, go to unboundandunbothered.com and look up, I don't know, something in the top nav, free events or something that you can register for that. But that'll really go into, particularly if you've got some perfectionist tendencies, this is the one to come to. And really, I'm going to do like I do on here, where I really break down, why is this happening? How can we interrupt it? What are the ways that I can stop overworking before I burn myself out? So that's coming up. Feel free to, I love a lively chat. I've got the chat open. I can see everything that's going on. I can see your little faces. So drop whatever comes up in here, any questions that you have as we go through these two. And I think those are all my housekeepers. Okay, so hopping into it. Question 1. I get the sense if I don't play small, I'll be fired. What should I do? So cautionary thing, I was fired for not playing small. So take my advice in the way that you want to, but I have zero regrets over it. So let's do what we always do, right? We're going to break down how our nervous system is triggered by our socialization and then these predictable behaviors that happen and what we can do about it. So let's start with what's going on in our nervous system. So essentially this question is, should I go find a bigger room, right? Or is it wrong of me to feel like I'm playing small, right? Like there's some amount of self-doubt in this question that wants some sort of validation. But what's going on in your nervous system is a freeze response where you've got indecision that's triggered by a fear of making the wrong choice, right? By leaving or by whatever it is. But that's the fear that's got you in the indecisive thing of what should I do? You're worried that future you will feel regret or shame. Like if I get too big for my britches and I think I need a bigger room, and then it turns out I was just overly confident, right? There's a little bit of that in there. But part of it is you already know the right answer. It just seems scary or hard. And so you tell yourself you're not sure. And the thing is that it gets harder and harder the more that you progress in your career to play small, because your self-assuredness, right? Your self-confidence that comes from within, that's not coming from other people, it grows and grows as you spend more time and gain more expertise, right? And then you realize that it's not you, it's them. But if it was them, it would feel easier. All right, so what's going on in our socialization that's triggering the indecisiveness and the fear and the anxiety around this? So we always talk about like our validation as people socialized as women comes from external sources. And so we're trying to get our validation cookies, but we haven't yet built the skill. Certainly the that work with me, we spend a lot of time building the skill of looking inward for the answer. Am I capable? Am I worthy? Am I valuable? Am I enough? But that's not something that we're socialized to have in the same way that men are. And so the self-doubt is also by design, right? There's always a new product or a new thing of how we're doing it wrong. We need this cream. We need a yoga body. We need to know our love language so we can be blah, 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 right? Like there's always something that we're doing wrong. And so self-doubt is by design. Of course, we're going to doubt ourselves. And then within female social groups, humbleness is valued over confidence. And so there's a moment in here where you might be having an idea of like, who the hell do I think I am? Like thinking that I'm too big for this room, right? That I've grown past this role or, this particular manager or whatever it is. Like, who do I think I am, right? Because humbleness is valued over confidence, it can feel really dangerous to get overly confident. And then finally, there's always that fear, particularly if you're the first or you're the only, but there's always that fear in whatever marginalized identities that you're living within, that we might not get a second chance. And the more marginalized identities that you're bringing into the workplace with you, the more that fear is heightened, right? That I might not, if I walk away from this and I think I'm too good for it and blah, 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 right? And so you could see how all of those things can kind of come together and make you really not sure, or at least believe that you're not sure that it's time to move on. And so what we end up doing is trying to talk ourselves into saying. So of course we start questioning ourselves more than we're questioning the situation, right? Because we're not socialized to trust ourselves, and self-doubt is by design, right? So of course we're going to question ourselves more than we're questioning the situation itself, right? Of course we're going to be worried about misstepping because we might not get another opportunity if we throw this one away. And of course, we think that there's something that we can change about ourselves that will improve the situation because we're socialized that we're responsible for other people's comfort. And that can sort of get twisted in our minds to believe that we can control how other people see us and how other people feel about us. All of those things, all of that makes total sense. Of course, we're going to not be sure what we should do next when we kind of take all of these elements into consideration. So what happens though, is that we twist and contort ourselves. We're trying to pretzel ourselves into a shape that will fit a situation that we've outgrown. And what happens when you do that is you're constantly on unstable ground because you're trying to be someone that you're not. You're trying to like stay in a small like certainly in my situation, I was trying to stay small and non-threatening because I thought I needed to stay in this job for a year. And so just trying to like dull my shine as much as possible to not bring everything that I had to offer, which was a lot, and just trying to like make myself smaller and smaller and smaller in the hopes that eventually I could just make it a year in this job. We also look for things that we can change about ourselves rather than trust that it's them and focus energy on changing the situation. And so we focus that and we turn that inward and we start picking ourselves apart and we start thinking, oh, well, if I would just kept my mouth shut there, or if I, just let them make that mistake, or if I hadn't added in my brilliance, then maybe I wouldn't have been threatening and now they wouldn't be mad at me and undermining me and whatever else was going on. But what happens is when we're focused on trying to change ourselves and not trying to change, like we don't have the energy to try to change the situation. If we can take that energy and focus on changing the situation, either like, first I'm going to figure out, is this room too small for me? And then if so, what do I want to do about it? Right? Instead of thinking there's something about you that you can twist and contort and change to get small or like appropriate enough that you like a fragile ego is not going to be threatened by you. And so ultimately we stay too long where we're expected to dull our shine and we doubt ourselves even more because we're almost gaslighting ourselves by staying in this situation. So what I will say is you do know what you want to do. The person who asked this question, you know what you want to do. You just don't like how hard it's going to be. But we can also break it down of like, it's just a series of steps to get you into a room that is big enough and bright enough and is not threatened by your shine. So here's the tips that I suggest as you're like trying to make this decision. If you knew you would make, and some coaches say the right decision no matter what, but I know that most of the folks in my community are perfectionists. So I like to switch it. If you knew you would make the wrong decision no matter what you did, what would you do? Like if you knew it wasn't going to work out no matter what would you do? And you can try it the other way too. If you knew that no matter what you chose, it would be great, what would you do? But I think with perfectionists, this is like, oh my God, because otherwise you're trying to make the most right decision, right? But just think about that in this context. If you knew you would be fine either way, if you knew it was going to suck either way, like that's a really quick way of understanding what you really want and like getting that part of you to speak up that's a little bit scared and in the back corner, like, we could do better, right? But who's just nervous to speak up. Also, you can ask, what does the future version of you think? What does you in 5 years think? What does you in 20 years think? Right? Like me being several years out of the situation that I was in, I was like, oh, I can't believe I even tried to make myself. Like there's no amount of small I could have made myself that situation would have worked out ever. But I really wish I would have asked me, who was like super happy in my career, right? And I didn't know this is where I was headed at the time, but like, if you have an idea of where you're going, or at least what you want it to be like, right? Like my dream scenario is exactly the one that I have right now. Like I'm doing something that feels really meaningful to me, that I never have to make myself smaller or dull my sparkle or hold myself back in any way. Like there's no one that's like threatened by me, right? Like this is all exactly where I would want to be. And me, my advice to her is, girl, just go. Like it's not that serious. Your reasons for staying, they're not very good reasons with time, right? So, and then there's a great book that I think will really help you tap into like the kind of energy that you need in this moment. It's called Professional Troublemaker by Lovey Ajayi Jones. And get the audio. I always say get the audiobook because I always listen to audiobooks, but like she reads it herself. I have never felt so gassed up and so powerful listening to just a book before. So I really, really recommend that one. This is the energy that you need, and having her in your ear giving you that energy, I think would be the thing that you need to really figure out what you want to do next. All right. So that was question 1. Question 2. I'm expected to drive huge results and then told to stay in my lane. Like, how do you reconcile these two things? Yeah, it's a good question. So let's start like we always do with our nervous system. What's going on in our nervous system and why does this feel so dangerous in our bodies? So the reason that we get out of our lane is because we've decided that our validation cookies live in an area that's outside of our area of responsibility. So if you're in marketing and you believe that the only metric is revenue, but you can't go close the sales, you're probably stepping out of your lane and going and trying to do sales jobs for them too, because you believe that your success can only be measured by something that you're not in control of. So that's going to give you a lot of fear. It's going to create kind of a fight response. You're probably going to have some interpersonal issues. You're definitely going to be in your head a lot, like going, shoulds and coulds and woulds and all of that sort of exhausting energy. And then you've got a flight response that's driven by the fear that if you don't push, you're not going to get your reward. If they don't close the leads, if they don't even call the leads that you handed off to them, then it's going to look like you don't know what you're doing, right? That's a fear response. I will say in my career, particularly early in my career, I broke a lot of glass this way because I thought the outcome was more important than the longer term relationships with the people. And there were a few missteps that I made that I really paid for because those people were never on my side. Everything that I wanted to get done after that, I wasn't going to get any help from them. And I worked in partnerships where it was really important that all of these different areas of the company got on board with my ideas. And I had one person in particular who was like, this girl's annoying and I'm not going to go out of my way to help her get anything done. And so I made that mistake because I went around her when we didn't have that type of relationship yet. So you've got the fight response where you're creating interpersonal conflicts and that sort of thing, which I kind of already covered. So with our socialization, what's going on? So we're looking for validation externally, right? We're looking externally for the answer. Am I worthy? Am I doing it right? Am I successful? Am I valuable? Am I appreciated? And then we also feel like, particularly for those with additional marginalized identities, you feel like you have more to prove. So there's like an anxiety there that's driven by fear because mistakes that we make are seen as character flaws, whereas someone in a majority group that's going to be seen as character building, right? We might not get a second chance to make this mistake. And so if this is a job and we feel that we have to prove that we are qualified for this job, then we're going to often step out of our lane because we're so worried about other people's perceptions and we're trying to measure our success by something that's beyond our control. So this all is true, right? But watch out for the self-fulfilling beliefs that get you in your own way, right? Like if they don't follow up on these leads, then they're not going to see that this field event that I picked, right, in a marketing context was the right one, right? But the things that you're going to do to try to get that are going to alienate the people that you're going to need to get you there. If that makes sense. Let me know in the chat if that makes sense. I can come back to it a little bit. And then we feel responsible for other people's comfort. We think that we can control other people's emotions and behavior, particularly if we grew up in a household where we were told our behavior could make mommy mad or make daddy angry or whatever it is. And so we grow up with this belief that we can actually control how other people feel about us and what they feel in our presence, right? Which we just can't. So those are all the things that are going on with our socialization, with our nervous system. The feelings that are coming up is there's fear that if they don't do this, I won't go get this, and then I'll be a failure, right? That's always the thing that's driving it when we want to get into somebody else's lane. Or the anxiety of like, if I stay out of it, bad things are going to happen, right? So I have to stay in it. I have to keep driving it. So what happens is, of course, we feel anxious because we know we may not be extended the grace that a male counterpart or someone in a majority identity, right, will be. Of course, we want our validation cookies when we're not socialized to look inward for the answer of, am I worthy? Am I valuable? Am I doing it right? And of course, we overstep when it feels like our success is in someone else's hands. Of course, we're going to do that. So what do we do? Well, the thing that's happening right now is that we're so worried about the single outcome that we alienate the folks whose help we're going to need longer term, right? When we're getting in someone else's lane, they're going to have an issue with it. And we're so conditioned to seek our validation cookies that we don't celebrate any of our actual wins, the things that are within our control. Like I had a client who was really trying to control like the end-to-end outcome, but she was just at the beginning of it. And so one of the ways that she was really able to calm her nervous system was to tell her, like, my job is to, I don't remember what it was. It was like to attend meetings, write reports, and answer emails or something along those lines. But she really broke it down so that she could see her success every day. Or I had a client that was in client support, and she was measuring like client success kind of thing. And she was measuring whether, like, if she was doing her job by whether or not her customers were happy. And of course, you can't make everyone happy all the time. So she was in this constant state of anxiety because she was measuring her success by something she couldn't control. And so what you want to do is focus on, what is my job? If you're in marketing, right? Focus on like, I'm going to drive this type of lead and I'm going to hand off this many. What are you actually being measured on? Of course, we want to see it turned into revenue or it doesn't count, but find the things that are in your lane and start measuring your success against those. If you find yourself overstepping all the time, it's because you think that your validation cookies are in somebody else's lane. And then we're so worried about falling short that we end up getting in our own way. Like we become the problem for ourselves by doing this, because we're creating the interpersonal issues that come with getting out of your lane. So find the way to like get your cookies and understand your value and your worth on the things that you can control. You'll also be a lot happier if you're like, these are the things that are within my control that I know make me really amazing at my job. And then every day that I hit those, I remind myself how freaking good I am at this job. So that's the way to like bring it down a little bit and be able to stay in your lane. And you drive huge results, but you drive the huge results that you can control. And then whatever they do, whatever sales does when they pick up the leads, right? Whatever product does when you hand off the designs, right? Like find a way that you get your satisfaction. Not that you're not going to care if those leads get closed. Of course you are, but don't let your value come from something that's outside of your control, because it's going to lead to so much anxiety and so much interpersonal issues. All right. So the tips. First one was the metrics in your control. You can try a thought around like, I measure my success by whatever, but think about, what is my actual job? How would we know if I was actually like totally killing it? And if you're in marketing, it's like how many leads that you're going to hand off, right? What are the creative ways that you got to whatever the quota was for the month of what you were going to try to do? Get in and figure out the things that you are in control of so that you can celebrate your own success. And then you can try and statements. These will give you a little bit of nuance, like the team can miss our targets and I can still be great at my job, right? Those two things can happen. My work can be not recognized and I can still celebrate my successes, right? We always know, like it's a given. I think there's an adage somewhere, like if we hit our numbers, sales is awesome. If we didn't, marketing sucks, right? I think that's the adage. It's written somewhere, right? But just think about the ways that you can do an and statement, like this thing that I think is terrible can happen and I can still be really good at what I do. So those are my tips to stay in your lane. All right.